Welcome everyone, this is Vintage Story and we are underground because in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Stone Quarry mod. This is absolutely one of my favorite mods for Vintage Story, and if you like to build with stone blocks or if you enjoy chiseling like I do and you want to get some of those polished blocks or the ashlar variety, then trust me, this is going to be a much more quick and efficient way of gathering those stone blocks than the normal vanilla method, which is very tedious. And I believe that this mod still stays within the feel of Vintage Story, even though, like I say, it is going to make your life so much easier when it comes to stone collection. So first, let's cover the tools that we'll be using, and then we'll get into an actual demonstration of how to use the Stone Quarry mod. There are 5 new kinds of tools introduced into the game by the Stone Quarry mod, and we're going to cover each one with a quick overview, and then we'll go into the details of how they actually work. But first, there are also 2 of the base game tools that we're going to be using for this demonstration. A hammer is required for this mod, and a pickaxe is very helpful for retrieving a plug if we place it wrong, or just clearing some of the excess stone. Now, the metal type doesn't matter, and in fact the hammer's durability I don't even think will be used during this process. We'll have to take note because I do have a brand new hammer, but we will definitely be using the steel pickaxe's durability, especially for striking stone. But again, the metal type doesn't matter as long as you can break the type of stone you're going for. So now the new tools which are introduced, we have something called the rubble hammer, then we have a rough cut chisel, a finishing chisel, and an wedge chisel. You can see I've got these all in different types of material too. So the metal type here only affects the durability. If you want to start out with a set of copper chisels and a hammer, that's totally fine. You'll just have to repair or remake them more often. Now down here we have the final type of new tool, the splitter plug. And with this tool specifically, the type of material you make it out of has more impact than just durability. It will also increase the range, and we're going to get into the details of what that means, but just keep in mind that if you're able to make iron, you should probably use iron for your splitter plugs, or even steel, because that'll give you the best range in the game. Copper is certainly viable, but you're just going to have to go through this process a little bit more often, but still it is a much more efficient and quick process than the vanilla method. So first things first, we are going to put away all the chisels and the rubble hammer. We're going to set those aside for now. Those will be used in the second phase of this, the actual collection of the stone itself, depending on what we want to get. And we're going to equip the hammer, and we're going to put the pickaxe in our hotbar, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab the steel splitter plugs. Now you do want at least 2, 4, 6, you could even probably do 8 of these, although that's getting a bit excessive. 6 is probably the most you'll need, but 2 would be the minimum. One single splitter plug won't work for this. So these are just for demonstration purposes. Like I said, let's discard everything but these 3 tools right here. Alright, now that we've set aside a few of our tools, we're going to go and collect some slabs, and I'll show you what those are here briefly, but first things first, I should finally mention about the tools. These are all crafted on an anvil, so just heat up some ingots, put them on that anvil, and the menu that pops up will now include these 5 different types of tools, including the splitter plugs. But once you've got them, let's grab our splitter plugs. They're in our hotbar so we can place them, and I have already prepared a very large slab that we're going to be taking out here. Now, one of the first things that kind of confuses people, that confused me when I first started playing with this mod, is these plugs have to be positioned in a very particular way, otherwise they won't work. So I've got 3 of them. Well, I'm sorry, I have a total of 6 splitter plugs, so I've got 3 facings on my slab here that we're going to take out. So I'm going to place 1, 2, 3. Notice that you can occupy the same block too as the splitter plug, so it actually makes things much easier. But now that these are here, what you couldn't do is place 3 more like this. This is not right. These plugs need to be on a different face. So the first set is okay where it's at, down here, that's totally fine, but the next set need to be on the facing which is at a 90-degree angle to the original, so just like this, okay? And you can see we've got the facing there, these are here. Now you'll know if you've placed them correctly by selecting your hammer and then right-clicking on the splitter plug. And if it actually starts to sink that plug into the stone, then you've done it correctly. If you've misaligned it, or if one of them is turned the wrong way, which you can do that, or like I say, if you've got them all on the same facing or the same plane of the rock slab, that won't work and they will not go in. But now that we've got 5 of them pushed in, this last one is going to trigger the slab, and you'll see what I mean. Boom, there it goes. So that whole entire area of stone is now gone, and in its place we have received a slab. There it is, made of granite. In the tooltip at the top you can see it says times 42. That means that there are 42 blocks of granite in here, in this stone slab. That was equivalent to what we just dug out. Now, again, we're going to be using the other tools shortly to retrieve this. Just a few more notes on the splitter plugs. Again, the range is what allows you to determine how big of an area you want to dig out. I almost never use a full 7 by 7 by 7. I'm pretty sure you would need 14 splitter plugs to achieve that, but you can also see next to the range it says 1 by 7 by 49, so it's letting you know that any combination in between those extremes is acceptable as well. And you can always go smaller too, like we just did here. We definitely did not use the maximum extent of the steel plugs, but this would have probably been too large for, say, the copper plugs. So again, it's just whatever you have available in terms of metal. But notice that I mentioned earlier the steel plugs in air, they don't have a durability. So once you've made the set of plugs, you're good to go. And also another thing I mentioned in air, it does appear that the hammer has used some of the durability. So I think I was getting those two tools mixed up here. But yeah, so the hammer will use durability, but once you've made your splitter plugs, they're good to go as long as you don't accidentally drop one and lose it. Let's do one more demonstration and remove this rock slab above our heads here. This will help to illustrate just how to use these again, because this is the most confusing part. And once you've mastered the splitter plugs, then everything else is really simple. But this also kind of points out that this world does not have cave-ins activated. So if you are in a world with cave-ins, you probably would be best removing the stone below your feet, which is totally viable unless you want to be placing a whole bunch of beams and stuff. But just keep that in mind, because that could be a very quick death if you forget about that. But so in order to place this, we're going to put the splitter plug at its highest point this time, right there. If I placed it here and then put the other one down here, however far back we can go with it, that's just where at the end of where we're going to go. It would just do this first layer. See what I mean? Yeah, we would just get this first one. In fact, let's demonstrate that. We'll do this. If I put it up here, it would take all of the slab, which is essentially what we want. But yeah, see, just for demonstration purposes, we'll do it again. And like I said, make sure you pick up your splitter plugs, because I have definitely lost them before, because they always just kind of fall out after you've successfully split one of these rocks off. There we go. And you can see that was a good demonstration of just using 2 of the plugs versus 6. Now, if I need more granite, I can dig out the surface of this up here and basically repeat the first example that we did. I would put in 1, 2, 3 here, and I'll keep these other 3, continue to clear this out with my pickaxe a bit until I got far enough back, and then we could of course collect another massive slab. Now, one final note about the slabs before we go into actually how to use these slabs. These things are great because they can very easily be stacked. So not only is it a more efficient method of clearing out tunnels and collecting the building blocks or chiseling blocks that you'll need, it also is a much more efficient way of storing the blocks and stuff too in these really handy slabs. But enough about the actual splitter plugs. Let's get to the best part, the collecting of the blocks. Alright, we have returned to the room with our original tools, and we're going to place our slabs back down. Now these are picked up using a pickaxe, but don't worry, it won't damage them if you do. And let's grab our 3 chisels and the rubble hammer. So again, a couple of notes about these chisels. Each one has its own name, so get familiar with the finishing, the rough cut, and the wedge chisel. The rubble hammer, you probably want to make one, although this is most likely going to be the one you use the least, and you'll see here why shortly. But one quick note, the rough cut chisel actually looks very similar to a normal chisel. It's just a little bit shorter and stubbier. So I've had a lot of friends not be able to find this in that anvil menu sometimes because it just looks like a regular chisel. So if you have trouble finding this one, just look over that menu real carefully. It's in there, trust me. But either way, when we were using our splitter plugs, we had our hammer in our main hotbar. For this stage, we're going to take our hammer and now put it in the offhand. And again, at this stage, I'm pretty sure that there is going to be no durability loss for the hammer now that it's in the offhand, but these will take durability hits. But what's the purpose? Why are there 4 different kinds? Well, each one of these represents the different types of stone block or material we can get from the slab. So we're going to start with our first one. This is the wedge chisel. And again, with the hammer in my offhand, my chisel selected, I simply right click the slab. Also, pay attention to that tooltip at the top. You'll notice the number next to the granite is going to go down. There we go. So the wedge chisel is giving me ashlar blocks. That's how we'll obtain ashlar from the slab. Now, using the same slab, we're going to switch to the finishing chisel, and with the same process, by holding down my right mouse button, we're going to now retrieve polished blocks. Using that same slab, look at that, the number of blocks did of course decrease, but now we've got 13 polished granite. Very handy for building and chiseling, that one is. Nice, nice. Let's see what the rough cut chisel gives us. So, process is the same, right click, let's retrieve it, and that one just gives us the regular rocks. These can be used for whatever you want to use them for. Obviously, you could even put them in your crafting grid and then polish them again. Not sure why you would do that, but either way, those are just a versatile plain old rock that you can get using the rough cut. And finally, the rubble hammer, believe it or not, does not need the hammer in the offhand there. You just simply right click with the rubble hammer and you will get the stones themselves. Now you see why I said this is the one you'll use the least, unless you're like making a whole bunch of the pathway blocks or something. I have used the rubble hammer occasionally when I'm trying to mass produce those, but for the most part you'll pick up plenty of stones on your journeys either way. But that shows you guys how versatile this mod is and how efficient it is. I mean, we've still got 7 more granite blocks here, another 7 in this one, 7 more here, and these slabs can get really, really big too. The size of the slab will actually change the larger the number of blocks is contained within it too. But ultimately, like I said, it is still much more efficient than trying to fill a chest with a bunch of stone or a bunch of ashlar blocks. So, guys, that's going to do it for a little tutorial / showcase of the Stone Quarry mod. So hit that like button, everybody. If this was helpful to you, make sure you subscribe for more vintage story content, and I will see you guys on the next one.